So what is up, everybody? Today we're gonna have a lunch break Facebook Live, and we're gonna talk about what it means and what are the challenges to run a European campaign. We are getting somehow close to the next European elections in May 2019, and I'm here with one of the greatest people I've met, at least over the past few weeks. He is Sebastian Rodriguez, founder and managing director of Rollout Democracy, which is a tech and strategy consulting firm specialized on grassroots pan-European campaigns, mainly focusing on pro-European movements and specializing on using technology to foster civic engagement. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you were right on point.
Okay, and so tell us about the company. So it's in a time where Europe is not living its best, let's say, image in many member states, although people remain pro-European. Let's say the health of Europe and its image has not been, it currently is at its best. What do you offer to movements that want to change that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Well, thank you first for inviting me, Marco, and hello to everybody. A little bit about the company. It started like many other projects with Brexit.
Really?
I've been living in London. Well, I have been living in London for more than 7 years.
Okay.
And one of the worst days of my life was the day after the referendum. I was there. I used to work in the private sector. I was making sure that the investment banks use the best technology available to run their business. And I realized after the announcement of the result that maybe I could start doing what I was doing in the private sector, but helping pro-European Union movements acquire and use and leverage the latest technology that is available. Not only in the US, there are great pieces of technology here being developed in Europe. And I said, let's make sure that we do everything we can so that the guys who are trying out there to campaign for values that are pro-European, multilateralism, solidarity, etc., they know how to use the best technology, because our adversaries, they are using it. Yeah, and they are using it very well.
That comes to my question. So if you had the need to help people within a specific cause, which is a more open, tolerant, united Europe, to make the best out of the current technology available. So does that mean that people who are against this cause are currently, or they used to at least, to be better at this?
I think they have consistently shown that they are better at it, because they definitely won the Brexit referendum. They definitely won in the US with Donald Trump, and in many other places. Technology is one element of a bigger picture. I think there are a lot of lessons learned about how to communicate, about the message that interests to voters that pro-Europeans should also learn from. But definitely technology plays a part, and I think they have outsmarted us in the past. And now we see a Steve Bannon who wants to open a shop here in Brussels to do that, but helping what I would consider they are my fellow citizens, but they are, politically speaking, they are adversaries, because they want to take the EU in a completely different direction. And we need to fight and win, because we are Democrats. We need to win in the elections, and we need to do everything we can to do that. And that's what the company is about. It's trying to bring that technology, bring these grassroots organizing techniques that have worked so well in different parts of the world, and help pro-European movements to how to leverage, how to acquire them.
Okay, Sebastian, a few months ago I was in Antwerp to give a workshop about this very topic. Okay. And I kind of had to challenge my views, because I thought originally that the success that nationalist and populist parties all around the world, not around Europe, because these went also over the Atlantic, was mainly caused by their audacity, by their careless lack of fear in saying what the ordinary people somehow had in their guts but had not the courage to say, which is pretty much, for instance, what Matteo Salvini is doing now in Italy. So no filter, that no filter communication. So how much do you think it's speaking the language of the people versus the knowledge of technology? So in percentage, do you think it's 50-50, or do you think it's more a matter of language and register compared to actually knowing, okay, we have this technology available? What do you think is actually the proportion there?
It's a very good question, very difficult to answer. What I would say is that technology will allow you to better understand your audience and to communicate with your own audience in different ways, so that you know, and we make these mistakes very, very often. We think that all young people, all millennials, we are all the same. We think the same, we have the same concerns, or that all the people, they are not tech savvy and they don't get the social media wall, etc. I think technology, data analytics will help you, whichever your audience is, you will be able to understand the audience so that you can communicate better. In terms of this unfiltered way of messaging that Donald Trump uses so often, I don't think we should learn much about it. I think what we should try to do is to understand the concerns of those people who end up voting for these guys, and trying to offer them solutions from a more calm, from a more reasonable point of view. And then we just need to acknowledge that so far there will be people that we will never ever convince. So why don't we focus on those who already support us, giving them more tools, more ways to spread the message of our campaign, and let's try to find the undecided, those who don't show up on the election day, those who are deciding between one party and the other. We need to find them, we need to see what are their concerns, and we need to communicate with them very effectively.
I totally agree on that, especially because it is proven that votes of protest, so people that need to vote to express protest against the current establishment, they will go to vote. But people that, let's say, that have greater global causes of unity, solidarity, and a brighter cosmopolitan future tend to be lazier. Why do you think it's the case? Sorry, I shouldn't say lazier, but definitely less keen on turning up.
I think on the one side, those who, like you said, that they go and show up to vote is because they've been promised, like it happened with Brexit, right? They've been promised a very short-term gain.
That's true.
And that they can, with one vote, everything will be just fine. Everything will be better. Whereas we, people who are the adversaries of the first group, we are trying to say that things are more complicated than going and just vote for someone, then everything changes. So the sense of urgency, and I think that's the answer. It's way better for those who are voting for populist or anti-establishment parties. What we need to do maybe, and I think we can do it, is create the same sense of urgency.
How can we do that? How can we do that?
We can say everyone recognizes that we are living a defining moment, not only in the European Union but also globally. And I think a lot of people who don't come across with politics and who are not engaged, they feel that certain lines, red lines, have been crossed.
Like what?
Like Donald Trump banning the entrance of Muslims into their countries, like saying that sexual harassing or being proud of having sexually harassed a woman. We've seen it with Brexit.
It's getting out of it, but anyway. That's crazy. I mean, okay, you say it's a defining moment, although it seems, at least in the US, to be getting out easily with that. But please continue.
I think he's a phenomenal character.
Communication.
It's just
we're going to
phenomenal.
study that in university.
Yeah, I think so. But also, he doesn't have a serious opposition. I think that's Democrats. They need to up their game.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we can say that we are in a defining moment that things like with Brexit cannot be taken for granted. Staying in the European Union cannot be taken for granted. Having a liberal having a liberal sort of not only in economic terms but also in social terms, rights of women. We've seen this Me Too movement. There are a lot of things going on which are not strictly political in the sense that political parties own it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that the civil society is demanding, and they are demanding it now. And so everyone understands that there is the first step to start making a change is to show up, to vote for the parties that stand for your values. And I think now we have an opportunity to create this sense of urgency, because if not now, the next European Parliament will look like a majority of far-right populist groups who don't care about solidarity, don't care that in Greece there are thousands of hectares burning, and that they should deal with it. They don't care about women's rights. They don't care about freedom, basic freedoms that we enjoy. So maybe it is our turn to say, hey guys, it is a complex process, but it all starts showing up to vote in the next election.
So there are things that we can somehow predict. So it's been announced that Steve Bannon is opening his own think tank, I think. That's how he called it. So, but then what can it be the counter move when you know that somebody has the goal in life to re-establish the far right in Europe, and we know history teaches us how dangerous that can be. So what can the opposition to these horrific ideals, in my opinion, do to counterattack them? Like, do you think pro-Europeans should start another think tank? There's a lot of pro-European think tanks, but probably there isn't one which is that strategic to bring pro-Europeans together in a way that maybe your company is intending to do.
The first thing we need to do is not to be intimidated by what Steve Bannon is doing. And what I mean is there's a big marketing strategy going on. The far right, the far right groups, there are many, they are not well integrated between each other, and they all have their own interests and their own strategic alliances.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult for someone like Steve Bannon, and I think there was an article on Politico about this, to unify such a diverse but also rebel, because they are rebels. So they have rebelled against establishment, and then there's an American guy who is a radical, who sits on the right to Trump, which is a lot to say. And then this guy is coming here and I'm gonna tell them how to do things. I don't think, first, let's not be intimidated. Let's realize that there are efforts going on to unite, to have a united front, Eurosceptic. So definitely, let's not be scared by what they are doing. The second thing that we can do is definitely there are a lot of think tanks, and I think it's good that there are a lot of think tanks, a lot of people trying to do different things because they have their own audiences, their own way of communicating. There was a big mistake during the Brexit referendum, which was there was one campaign, Open Britain or Stronger In, and they tried to have one unique message on why the UK should stay in the EU. And probably they missed that capacity to communicate how Labour communicates, how the Liberals, how the Conservatives, and in doing so reach to a wider audience. So I don't like this idea of, we should all become one, because then it loses the originality and the authenticity. I think there should be a lot of more coordination. There are greatest actors going on. You have the European Movement International. You have I don't know, in Italy there are a lot of people in Spain as well trying to do things. What I would say is let's have a framework. Let's coordinate at a very high level. That we're strategic about it. But then I like this idea of having a diverse and plural number of actors campaigning in their own way, reaching their own audience. So,
And talking about coordination, so if you had to mention the 3-4 biggest challenges to run a European campaign, because there's going to be 27 member states, 24 languages. I don't know how many regions. I don't know how many provinces.
Yeah.
I don't know how many different social strata of society, from the agricultural workers in Lapland to tourism workers in the south of Spain. Like, how do you address such a crazy variety of audiences in one campaign?
Yeah.
Do you actually? Do you? I don't know.
We have experience running European campaigns on different issues, minority rights, on issues that affected the member state in particular, but that needed a EU-wide response. So each campaign is different, but there are three main challenges. The first one is, like you say, the language. The first mistake you can do with your campaign is to communicate in English and French across the whole EU. It's a big mistake. What I found out when we step outside of this bubble called Brussels is that people get offended when you are trying to convince them to do something and you don't even make the effort to communicate in their language, and they get very offended. And I think about it. I think about my dad, who is the average voter, and never been in. He's in South Spain.
In Spain.
And sometimes I say, Dad, you should sign this petition for a client that I'm doing. And I say, yeah, but it's in English, so it doesn't. I'm not gonna do it.
That, yeah.
So I think you have to speak on the language that goes to the heart of the people you want to involve, and that is not only the official language of the country. If you are in Spain and you want to convince Catalans, you need to speak Catalan. You need to speak Basque. If you are in Hungary or in Romania and you want to mobilize the Hungarian community, you need to speak in Hungarian. And you have to be very, very interested in finding the right tone, the right words, which goes back to my second point. So the first one was language. The second point, it's going to be using proxy and using partners to run the campaign. It's very important that if you're running a campaign in Hungary, you have someone you can trust who is going to advise you on communications, strategy, what works, what doesn't in the local area.
Okay.
And so language, having proxy, having good partners in the member states, and last but not least, you have to find economies of scale. And here is when technology comes in.
Okay.
With some of the cutting edge campaign platforms that we see nowadays, with a very, very affordable price, you can run a database which is pan-European, which you can segment, that you can allow people to communicate to those who are in the database. You are able to create websites in different languages very quickly and very cheaply. There is no way you can run a campaign across the whole EU, and each country has its own technology infrastructure. You have to find technologies of scale, economies of scale, and to do that, there are so many things that are available and that are affordable.
When you talk about partners, do you also mean influencers? Do you think that influencers will actually play a role in upcoming elections, or that's a line not to overcross?
Yeah. Well, I could keep talking about influencers for a while. I'm a bit skeptic about influencers, especially I see at the very least two tiers: the super influencers, which I think about football players, coaches, singing stars, etc. They are great, but then they're always going to ask something in return, which is money, which is visibility, anything.
Do you think so? Because usually when somebody is like a millionaire, they don't need money anymore.
Well, I've come across a few of them, and they have a business, they have a brand, and
which is usually not run by them.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and there's always, and even if there's nothing in return, your campaign has to be very special for a super influencer to it has to be something trying to save someone from dying from a very rare disease, things like this. But campaigns that are commonplace nowadays, climate change or trying to stop a factory to be built in your area that is going to contaminate or things like this, they don't attract the attention of these super influencers, and if they do, it comes across as lack of authenticity. What you want to find is this middle tier, who are people who, in European terms, they are not influential, but in your community, they get people to listen to
I
them.
agree. More micro influencers than one big influencer. Right?
Yeah.
I totally agree on that, and especially when you have a diverse audience.
Yeah.
The trick is to mobilize, let's say, 10 people that have 2,000 followers on Instagram instead of one that has 20,000. Also because when people are scrolling through content and they see these hyper influencers, they want to be fun, they want to have fun, they want to have something entertaining, they want to have something that makes them feel good or that attracts them towards a product. Not necessarily they want to be driven into discussions that make work their conscious, their moral conscious, their political conscious. So I agree that it's a lot more work to mobilize 10 influencers with 2,000 followers instead of one with 20,000 or 200,000. But that's what pays off. Whether it can be done on politics, I think so. But it depends on the type of influencer. If it's an influencer that has developed an image within the realm of politics, journalism, causes, yes, by all means. But if it is an influencer that has developed a brand within sports or entertainment or products, no, I think it will backfire on both sides. So that is quite interesting. And let's say one last question. So what do you think are the technologies that anybody who's running for the next European elections should concentrate on? If you can give this out.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think there's a combination of currently available technologies that everyone should use. First one, people need to have integrated border relationship management systems. You have to have in one place your people. You have to have all the data you have from your audience in one place, and then being able to communicate with those people in the same platform. Otherwise, you are building data silos. So one integrated border relationship management system or customer relationship management system, there are a few of those, both in the US and in Europe. The second one, you need a very powerful data analytics platform. You want to be able to understand, and I don't want to call it big data because it's not really big data, but you need to be able to understand what's going on in your environment. You need to be able to read the data to see what's trendy, what's working, what's not, and to incorporate these conclusions into your campaign strategy. And you can only do that if you have a very strong data analytic component. And then if I could just say one more, we were talking about it before, I think you should innovate in at least one of your communication channels, and you should incorporate, if email is not giving you the results that you need, try some new technologies that are out there to communicate on WhatsApp, to communicate on Instagram, or the most basic text messages. I think if you're able to manage these three components, there are many others. There's artificial technology, the use of chatbots. I think it's amazing, but probably this is more in the future. If you are able to manage these three things, I think you can. In Europe, you can make a difference.
I think a lot can happen tech-wise in the next 10 months. I think chatbots are used already by a number of European parties and businesses in America. It's been going on for some time. In my opinion, my 2 cents is going to, especially for campaigns, going to be exclusive messaging. So messages that are exclusively to you as an individual and not to a group of people. Thank you so much, Sebastian, for joining me today. We'll talk about more related topics tomorrow. All the information about Sebastian, the company, and his work will be in the description of this live, and you can feel free to ask more questions that himself or other people from Rollout Democracy. We'll come back to you on that. See you tomorrow for the next live.
See ya.